And with exactly 7 days to go for the World Cup, Pakistan go down to England and they take a 1-0 lead in the series. Welcome to the shiny side. I'm your host, Haris, and we have with us from Houston, looking slightly different, Omer Basir. Omer, how's it going?
Hey, Phrase, I brought the shiny side to shiny side today.
Yeah, not so shiny, not so shiny, but welcome on the show. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, good cricket starting back up and excited about the World Cup too.
Yeah, and I think it's getting us right into it. I think even though Pakistan lost, I think it was a really good game of cricket. I think we saw both sides play close to their best cricket, perhaps, and it was an exciting game. But how did you look at the game today?
Yeah, I think both sides they were it ebbed and flowed, and both sides were finalists, right? But
Yeah,
they haven't really done well since the World
yeah,
Cup. So it was, I think, a very important game for both, and Pakistan still continue to have some struggles, but there were a lot of
yeah,
positives.
yeah.
But England, I think, yeah, they played a good game.
You mentioned a lot of parallels. Both teams had their fastest quicks coming back after a long injury layoff. England's layoff much longer than ours. But I think just starting at the top, right? So I mean, again, England batted first. Of course, they made 183 odd. They were looking set for a much bigger score. They were 144 with 31 balls to go, and then they had a bit of a collapse. They only scored 39 in the last 31.
Yeah.
And again, Pakistan, I think while Fakhar and Babar were at it, looked like they may get there, and even just about Imad Wasim, but we probably just didn't get enough. If you start with the toss at the Pakistan decided to bowl first. Again, that's not uncommon in a T20 game, but apparently there's been 9 T20s at this ground, and no side has ever won a game chasing. How do you look at that decision?
I think if you hadn't shared that stat with me based on our recent performance, as Pakistani captain, I would have bowled first as well. Right?
Yeah.
I think we're way better chasers
Yeah.
in T20, so I think they went with their strengths. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what specifics of this ground play into that
Yeah.
result. So I don't know if it's just
I
coincidence,
mean,
but I
also,
think
it's
it was
not
a
the
fair
biggest sample
decision.
size either, and you don't know how sporadic those games are across what period, to be honest. So I get it.
Yeah.
In terms of the 11s we went with, right? So Pakistan, I mean, okay, so we left out Usman, Abrar, Abbas Afridi, and Naseem Shah. Good to have Haris Rauf back. I'm assuming Naseem was, I don't know why Naseem was left out, but how do you look at
Yeah.
the 11?
Yeah. Naseem hasn't had a few good games. So I wonder if it's a case of take a break and get some rest and let's give Haris a chance since he's back. Feels like it was a case of that. But yeah, he hasn't really done well so far. And I'm glad that they're also giving Amir game time, to really,
Yeah.
really get a feel for what he can do. I thought the 11 was okay. I think through the series, they hopefully can try a few more combinations. Abrar Ahmed, again, my sense is how they've kept him out in the last few games as well as they're just keeping him as a surprise element. Otherwise, it seems like he needs to be in the 11 somehow.
Yeah. And I guess for England, they didn't play Mark Wood, so I guess they were just trying out the option. They didn't play Sam Curran either, but I think they went for Jofra, and I guess I think the top 4-5 looks pretty. I mean, I think the only issue I have with the top 5 is they have top 5 right-handers, and even though Pakistan didn't really make them pay for it, but that could perhaps be looks a bit imbalanced. What do you make of that mix?
Yeah, and Imad Wasim sort of had them in trouble for that
Yeah,
reason, right? They were all similar type of batsmen, and he would just kept keeping it straight, and he had them locked down. So you're right. I mean, they could get exposed, but it's such an explosive lineup. I mean, Johnny Bairstow comes in and looks like a misfit because even though he's a fairly aggressive batsman, he's not as explosive as the other guys. So I mean, it's a good 11. I mean, you go with your best, right? Maybe Moeen Ali looked out. I don't think he's good enough to break into that top 5. So he's the only left-hander there. So
yeah,
I think you go with your best,
yeah.
and they did that.
And I guess the other thing is, I think England have very smartly managed to kind of refresh their batting, right? So in the top 5, they have Will Jackson, Phil Salt, who barely played any T20s, and then they had Harry Brook as well. So it's kind of fresh. Well, the bowling is pretty much the same guys you've been seeing around for a while. Let's look at Pakistan. Let's look at Pakistan's batting. I feel like that was the more exciting part of the match. Pakistan made 55 for 2 in the power play. And I know we criticize Pakistan a lot for the way they bat, mainly when they bat first. But I feel like this time, from a captaincy point of view, I feel like we really got the order right. We sent the right guys at the right time. And some of that, I like the overall structure, even though we didn't kind of get to the end we wanted. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I agree with that. I think the learnings that now we're starting to see is maybe this isn't the best order and we need to tweak it. But yeah, I mean, the top 4, yeah, I think any of them can open, right? But you gotta stick with the guys you want to stick with, and they've done that. Babar's doing really well in all his roles. we continue to stick with Saim. I know a lot of noise is now popping up on he needs to be a little bit more consistent. So, but when you look at the squad, really, there's not too many people sitting out there that are ready to come in. And
if anything, in my view, we may have taken a quick too many and one less batsman in the 15. But I think starting at the top, Rizwan obviously got out really quickly. I think Fakhr looked fantastic. I think he made some comments in the press conference before the game, and he really stuck to those. He took the game on from ball one, and he was incredible, I thought, today.
Yeah, Fakhr, it's a weird thing about Fakhr, right? Anytime he has a close call in his first 2 or 3 balls, he has an amazing innings after that. That's what happened. First ball, he nicked it, he got lucky, and he blasted. But that's what we need. Fakhr Zaman's in the team to do exactly this. If he's going to stick around and, poke the ball around, that's not why he's in there and batting at number 4.
Sometimes, Fakhr is a very hard player to analyze because a couple of games ago in Ireland, he made 20 off 18, and I couldn't understand why. But in the very next game, then he played maybe the knock of that series again, right? So it looks like he's coming into touch at the right time. He's taking on the quicks and the spinners equally well. And I think had he been around for 10 more balls, maybe it could have been a very different result. But moving on to Babar, I also thought Babar and Fakhr, I think so generally we have a tendency sometime when we lose wickets, we kind of go in our shell. But I think Babar and Fakhr both took the bowling on, which is why we finished where we did in the power play. In fact, Babar's first ball, 1 bounce for Jafra Archer was quite a sight. What do you make of Babar's batting today?
Yeah, that was beautiful. Those cover drives he hit in the first over or so, those were just beautiful, right? And then he played big strokes, and he did really well. He's doing no criticism there. I think to the intent overall, you're right. Everybody that came in, nobody was just looking to hang out, right? Everybody went for the big hits. By the time Chacha came in, he knew he was the last guy, so he had to buy some time, which was fair. But other than that, intent was okay. Execution, and that's still to be left.
I think in the middle, Shadab and Azam combined they scored 14 or 14 balls, right? Ordinarily, if Shadab or Azam Khan are batting and they play 14, you'd be surprised if they score anything less than 20, right? So I feel like that was probably a phase of play where even though Fakhr was also batting with them, from the other end, he didn't get much support. And I think from a point where we were just ahead of the game, I feel like those two partnerships kind of just took us back in the game.
And Azam, he was the biggest disappointment for me. And I say that I think he faced 7 balls or 9 balls, right? I think 9 balls. From those 9 balls, there were only 2 balls which he hit for 4 that he looked in control. The 7 other balls, he was completely out of sorts. In fact, he looked very, like a domestic player. He didn't look like he was international caliber. So I was feeling bad for the guy, but that also led me to the thought of, does he deserve to come before Chacha? I think if the has done enough.
I think it's not about before or after. I think it's more about, Azam's best performances have been in the middle, especially against spin. And Ifti again has been in the death, he's been brilliant. So I feel like that role probably is based on that. But
I agree, but again, that's a domestic sample size where you're not going to be facing Adil Rashid all the time, or a Rashid Khan, or these type of guys. So I think we need to look at it. And again, international teams are smart enough that they know your strengths, and they'll make sure they don't bowl to it.
Yeah. And what do you make of, before we move on to England's ball, what do you make of Saim? He scored what, 2 of 7. Like Azam, if you look at his international record now, it doesn't look strong at all. Having said that, I'm still keen on backing him and giving him a few more games. How do you see Saim? And there's a lot of, I'm sure I haven't seen Twitter yet, there'll be a lot of criticism for him. But how do you look at his place in the side?
I'm a fan first, right? So, but the external noise is getting to me, and I do see that, like as you said, his performance haven't been stellar. However, the question always comes with, okay, even if I agree to drop him, what does that mean? Who comes in, right? Yes, we can fill in the opener spot. That's not a big deal because we have enough people in there. But then you're bringing in, I think Usman Khan is the only guy sitting out who's a batsman there. So it's not like he's proven at this level either. So, and then it really leaves you with a weak underbelly there. So I think I'm okay with playing Saim more, longer. And he's had a few innings in between that have been really good. And he looks good every time he comes out. So, and he's, I'd stick with him.
Okay, cool. So you're sticking with Saim. I think, but I agree with you. I feel like he's running out of lives now, right? So I feel like if he has a poor next 2 games, the noise will be really strong. Looking at England, the way England went, I think Moeen opened the bowling and he kind of bowled through. I think he finished with 26 for 2. So I think pretty good. I'm saying Butler should be quite pleased with that showing leading up to the World Cup.
Yeah, exactly. Moeen's always a decent performer for them, but he's definitely not their top spinner. Usually it's Adil Rashid. So that was the game changer. It also sort of really put our strategy and captaincy into into the limelight on why we didn't bowl Ifti while he was there, when Shaheen wasn't doing that well, Haris was getting whacked around. Why didn't we bring in our spinners more? But yeah, Moeen did really well.
I'm guessing they also, I mean, we'll come to that later, but I guess they also thought Moeen would be good at. They thought Azam Rizwan isn't the best hitter off spin early on in the power play, especially, and they probably thought that was the best option against Saim as well. I imagine that probably played into it, and that was very smart thinking. Archer went for 15 in his first over, but came back quite well, finished for 2 for 28 and hitting 90 miles per age. I think for England's sake, it's probably a very good sign leading up to the World Cup.
Yeah, he came back really well. And of course, I mean, at the end, you could argue he was bowling to sort of a half a tail, tail-enders really, and he was able to then control the game. But in the beginning, Babar played him really well. So there was a little bit of has he made the same return as Haris Rauf? But both of them came back. And yeah, Archer, excited to have him back in the game. I mean, anytime you have a fast bowler like that, it's fun to watch.
If we go to England's batting, start with the first innings, right? So, I mean, I think England started off with they lost the early wicket, and then there was a 70-run partnership between Buttler and Jacks that kind of set them up for the game. I thought Shaheen was good in the second half because he only went for 15 in the last two, but he wasn't so good in the beginning. But I think Butler's knock was really good. He's been in decent form in the IPL, scored 100 there as well, and he's kind of come back and held the innings together. I think the second highest score after Butler was under 40. So, but because he scored that pretty big 84, 51, I think he kind of made sure they got to a decent score.
Yeah, no, he played really well. I think the Pakistani bowling really helped him. Shaheen had a few good balls there, but there was a lot of looseners. We brought in Haris Rauf in the power play, who was again, bowled those good length balls for him to hit.
I think on the Shiny side alone, we've probably spoken about 27 times about how Haris Rauf should never bowl in the power play in any format, but we continue doing that.
Amir was probably the only bowler in the game that, well, maybe Reese moved a few, but he moved that new ball both ways in his first over, and then he didn't get an over again for a while. Imad Wasim had a great over. I understand the rotation piece of it, but come on, man, you're getting whacked on the other end. Stick with Amir.
And so when Imad bowled that brilliant over, I was expecting him to get another one 2 overs later, but he didn't, which was surprising.
Yeah. So those, it's like early on, get Butler out. You don't want to let him. So we really helped him. Of course, he took advantage of it. He hung out, and we bowled a lot of looseners. Until that reverse hit, switch hit, or the reverse sweep, whatever you want to call it, he hit. He was just playing orthodox shots, and we just kept feeding him.
And Butler has a tendency, he doesn't get explosive in the first 2-3 overs. He lets the other guy kind of take it on, and he takes a few overs to get set. So, that's the time to strike. But I think it's a good segue. You mentioned Haris Rauf in power play. Haris Rauf went for 17 in his first over, but his next 3 went for under 6 an over. He went for 34 overall, 17 in the next 3. I thought he would look really good in the second half of the inning, which is what his strength is. So given that he had a shoulder dislocation, and we had guys like Jeff Thompson, who lost 10 kph after the shoulder dislocation, I'm really happy to see him bowling his usual self.
Yeah, absolutely. No, great comeback. That's what he's good at, as you said. I can't fathom. I can't digest the idea of how we have tried this multiple times. We have always failed with it. Yet we continue to try it. I mean, especially when you had Imad Wasim there and Amir there, there was no need for Haris to be exposed so early on in his comeback game, right?
Imad was the pick of the bowlers. I mean, he could probably say he was the best performer of the day for us. But again, he got 2 for 19. Like we said, there was a series of right-handers, and he made the most of that. And he kind of kept them quiet, kept it tight, and he got a couple of wickets. And he was just looked like England didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah, he was amazing. I mean, both the retirees, for that matter, did really well. And I mean, it's again, why was he out the last few years? Begs again, that's just sad reality of Pakistani cricket. But Imad, yeah, kudos to him, right? Coming back after such a he was out for so long, yet he delivered at the international stage. So he's not just a domestic wonder. He plays. It's like he never left.
And I actually somehow didn't manage to catch Shadab's bowling, but what do you make of his bowling? The figures look disastrous. He went for 55 in his 4 overs, didn't get a wicket at all.
He had, I think his third over was the only one where he went for under 6.
Under 5, I think. Yeah, he went under like 4 runs or something.
You can calibrate for that. You can imagine the onslaught.
The destruction in the others.
No, so he was very loose. And again, after watching both innings, this was a spinner's wicket. So there's definitely issues to be sorted.
Yeah. Okay, I guess overall, if you look at the game, I think positives for Pakistan. I think Rauf being back and his showing of the depth is a big tick. Imad with the bat and ball. I think Fakhar with the bat. I think was again his the way his intent and how he delivered, and I guess overall I think how we sent Tool. I think we sent Shadab at the right time for a change. I liked how the batting order worked out, even though we didn't really finish it. But I feel like I can see they're trying to kind of use their resources wisely, even if it didn't come off today.
I think Amir's bowling was a positive too.
Yeah, true. I think given the way, I mean, I've been dying to see Abrar in the mix, but given how Imad is playing, and I think the biggest challenge here is if you bring in Abrar, then you are kind of weakening your. So right now Shaheen's batting at 9. You bring Abrar in, Shaheen comes down to 8, and your tail gets a bit longer. So that's probably what they are struggling with.
And it already felt long today when you needed somebody really to come in. It felt long, so that's a tough one. But we need his bowling for sure. So I mean,
I think if there's Shaheen for Amir, then your batting becomes if there's Naseem coming in for Amir, which I'm assuming will happen. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't see how Naseem does not fit into your first 11 in an actual World Cup game. So
I agree.
If anything, it's probably between Amir and Rauf, and that's where I feel like Rauf on current form even would take it. So there's a couple of more games left. We play again on Tuesday, then we play on Thursday before the teams fly off. By the way, this is a bit nuts because the World Cup starts on Sunday, early Sunday. It's actually a Saturday night game in the West Indies and it's actually in the US, and they're playing the last game on Thursday, so it's really tight. But we get to the World Cup a day before it starts. Would you make any changes to Pakistan's 11 for the next game? What do you want to see?
I would get Osman Khan in for Azam, and this is a two-way thing, right? So not only am I trying to figure out who my best middle order explosive batsman is, so between Azam and Osman, but also in case I want to remove Saim at some point, I need an extra. I need to try make sure I have a middle order batsman ready to go. So that's my immediate thought is to bring him in, or even if we want to keep trying Azam, maybe if he sits out and he comes in. But we need to.
So for you, this call is about making sure your backup player gets some time rather than you think that would be the best 11. Is that right?
Yes, and if the strategy, right? So if Saim isn't delivering, I need to make sure I have a middle order batsman ready to come in, in that slot. So mix of both. On the bowling front, maybe Naseem for Shaheen, give Shaheen a break and Naseem comes in. But then to the point you made, right? Like we need to find a way to fit Abrar in, and if Naseem is coming in, then maybe we rest Shadab and he comes in. At this point, I would take Imad over Shadab because we need his bowling.
I mean, to be honest, like I've been leaning the other way, but I think especially because of what I think the role Shadab plays in the middle of the innings with the bat, or he can play, I feel like that's very hard for us to find anyone else to do. But I think given that, I mean, his bowling is such a mess right now. I mean, the way I see it, Shadab fits in as a 6th bowler. That's how I see it, right? Pat him at 4 or 5 and then. But okay, good stuff, Umar. Thank you for being on the show.
No, thanks for having me.
For those of you watching, if you have a view on what you think Pakistan should do in the next game, please leave a comment, and we'll be back after the next T20 on Tuesday. In the meantime, stay tuned to the shiny side.